Hello, friends. Hello, friends. A tradition unlike any other.
Oh, my goodness. In your life, have you seen anything like that?
There it is! Adam Scott, a life changer.
Mashed potato!
Here it comes.
This is the 19th tee. Kieran Marsh, Nathan Drudy back with you. Drewster, pleasure as always to have your company, my friend.
Oh, looking forward to it, KM. Another Monday, as we were just saying. Done and dusted, and this is the best part of a Monday by far.
Isn't it just bit to get through this evening as always? We've got a first-time winner anywhere on the LPGA Tour. Alison Corpuz happens to do it at the Women's US Open. We've got Cam Smith back in the winner's circle. The LIV London event, the Centurion Club. Sepp Straka, a winner on the PGA Tour. Rasmus Højgaard, a winner on the DP World Tour. A bit of news about as well. So lots to get through, Drudes. But
yes,
we should start, as we always generally do, defer to a major on the Monday evening post one of the biggest weekends of the year. And it was Pebble Beach, a place that we've spoken about actually pretty recently, courtesy of your travels there on, of course, the honeymoon that played host to the US Women's Open over the weekend. Quite an entertaining couple of days of golf, as it always is at Pebble. And as I said, the Hawaiian, young Alison Corpuz, holds her nerve today. Not just holds her nerve, but really finishes with a wet sail and manages to secure her maiden victory on the LPGA Tour, her first major victory, of course, in doing so by 3 strokes, Drudes.
Yeah, I mean, I've actually really enjoyed watching this tournament. I think having the appreciation for seeing some of the property, not too long ago was served a really good purpose for me. So that was great. But I mean, yeah, I watched most of yesterday's coverage, and the way that Alison Corpuz was playing, and I'm sure we'll touch on Nasa Hataoka shortly, but just going toe to toe for the best part of the third round anyway. I know that NASA obviously had an incredible third round, but she was there and she held her nerve today while I guess NASA fell away, which is you'd probably expect it to be the other way around, if anything, Marshy. But yeah, a really impressive performance. 3-stroke winner, $2 million in prize money as well. So yeah, a very deserving winner, and played the course exceptionally well and consistently across all 4 days.
It really did, for a large part of it, Drudes feature some relatively unheralded names, didn't it?
Yeah.
We had, I suppose, first and foremost, it was young Anne Donegan, the amateur, who I believe plays out of LSU. She's Irish, and her home club is, in fact, Lahinch Golf Course, that you've heard an awful lot about on this podcast. She kind of popped up with a 69 on the first day, and she was near about the pointy end of the leaderboard. And then really the name that probably caught everyone's attention was Bailey Tardy, who's finished the tournament in a tie for 4th, 6 strokes back at 3 under, who was there or thereabouts for a lot of the tournament. But to your point, young Alison Corpuz, a product of USC, so the University of Southern California Trojans. Again, a college we've spoken about a lot of late, predominantly because it was also the home of Rose Zhang, a name you've heard a lot on this podcast, who also finished in the top 10 herself. But, Corpuz is coming off a top 5 in the Chevron, the other major this year, very early on in her career. And I think the poise that she showed, particularly on the second 9 today, to go under par on a few of the holes to really cement the victory when there were a few challenges, not least of which Charlie Hull kind of coming home really strongly. So super impressed to see a player of relatively short tenure at the very top level of the women's game show a maturity well beyond her years, Drudes, to kind of close out one of the biggest tournaments of the year. And in doing so, I believe become the first American woman since 2016 to win the National Open, which is significant in and of itself.
Yeah, it certainly is. And to your point, it wasn't one of the big names that we were perhaps expecting that to compete, one of the American ladies to get over the line. When you put the names down on paper, I would dare say that Alison Corpuz was probably not on that list, but she certainly will be going forward. I mean, really impressive. I mean, I'm looking at the stats here, and I'm struggling to pick out anything that really lights up for me. And I mean, 43 56 fairways hit, driving distance is fine. The putting was probably the one that really stood out. 27 putts per round is excellent. Sand saves at 100% across the week, and greens in reg 47 of 72. So it wasn't like there was any part of her game that was just dominant, but the putter was certainly helping. I mean, across the week, 3 bogeys in the first 2 rounds, and she only had 5 through the first 3 and then added another 3 today. So it was a little bit of a roller coaster for her. And there looks like there might have been some challenges, as you mentioned. But she ends up getting it done, even dropping a shot on 17 as well. So when you've got the shots up your sleeve, she certainly used it and walks away. What was it? 3-shot winner anyway. So she's deserving nonetheless.
Yeah, 9 under par gets it done in the end, which is really impressive as well. I think when you consider, look, it was pretty timid, I would suggest, through the first probably 2 rounds, but it really bared its teeth, particularly from a wind perspective on Saturday. So I think, to come out with 9 under par, Pebble, as you well know, having walked it out in the elements. So when the wind is up, it becomes an incredibly challenging golf course, and one that I think, to the USGA's credit, plays really well to the women's game, and it's not before time. It's well overdue, to be honest, that the women's majors are going to these storied, historic golf courses in the US. But I think it would be fair to say, as we've seen in recent years through the AT&T event there, Pebble's probably been left a little bit behind by the men's game and just the distance generated. But I thought it was a wonderful course for the women. You could see the significance of them playing there, what it meant to an awful lot of the field, particularly those that have been in and around the women's game for a long time now. And then to see a young player really at the beginning of her career who's kind of grown up watching these very veterans who appreciate the opportunity to play on Pebble win there and talk about the significance of winning in a place like that. So, yeah, I thought the way in which she just had a presence of mind as such a young player to hold it together across the 4 days is really impressive. And, some really nice symmetry. I don't know if you saw this, but actually went to the same high school as Michelle Wee West, who of course played her final tournament of professional golf this weekend. And probably some nice symmetry there in the fact that she grew up idolizing Michelle Wee, as a Hawaiian girl, went to the same high school, and now she wins her first event, albeit a major, in Michelle Wee's last. So just a really, I think, so many strings you can kind of pull out in the Alison Corpuz story across this weekend, and a deserving winner, but also a delightful one as well.
And 2 really good performances back-to-back, T15 at the Women's PGA as well, which I've only just realised and put 2 and 2 together. That 2 majors back-to-back is quite unusual in terms of in terms of scheduling. But T15 at the Women's PGA and obviously goes out and delivers a really good performance. I touched on before just the consistency of the scores: 69-70, 71-69. So there wasn't any massive swings. I mean, you look at Charlie Hull had a 73 in the opening round, 66 today. Nasa Tuoka, 69, 74, 66, 76. So, there were a few roller coasters in there, and ultimately I think that's what got it done for Alison Corpuz, was just the consistency in which she played across the 4 days. There weren't any massive blowouts. She wasn't suffering big triple, quadruple bogeys like most of the field was, and ultimately that's got her over the line.
I think we need to talk about Charlie Hull, who finishes in ultimately a tie for second, but as impressive as Sunday at a major as you'll see, in the conditions particularly. So she hit 66 today to really jettison herself into contention there, at least while Corpuz was playing the front 9. She pulled away in her second 90 Corpuz, but Hull was really applying some pressure. And I think it's probably the point I was making earlier, is probably what makes Corpuz's victory even more impressive, is a player of her relatively young age manages to take that in her stride, because there was definitely, not least of which via the broadcast, but I'm sure on the ground, the momentum and atmosphere building around Hull's round, because she lit the course on fire today, Charlie Hull.
And a player that is so immensely talented as well, but hasn't really been putting it together of late. Having a look back here, I mean, 3 cuts in her 5 previous tournaments coming into the Women's Open. And, we're going back now to January when she was delivering some more consistent performances. But the putter was really the thing that stood out. I mean, she had a pretty rough second round. She finished 3 over on the back 9 and got around in even par, but 29 putts. And it just was, as we always say, the abacus. Not everything was going to one side for Charlie. There was one thing that was letting her down each round. I mean, you look at her green in regulations, 39 of 72 across the week. I mean, it's really, really poor. And today, 13 of 18 and puts it together with the putting. And all of a sudden, she's shooting a really good score as well as 12 of 14 fairways hit. So, she'll be, I think she'll be obviously pleased that she finished as well as she did and really flew home. But there's no doubt that someone of her ilk will be immensely disappointed with what she put out in the first couple of days anyway. Just never seemed to get any momentum going.
It was a great moment. I don't know if you picked up on the audio from her 72nd hole today. So she's obviously by that stage she probably knew it was out of reach. Like she'd really, as I said, put herself in a contention through her front 9. But then Corpuz was putting a bit of a round together, and I think she was 3 shots back beginning the 18th hole, the 72nd of her tournament, and she really hits the tee shot to the one place she can't hit it on the 18th at Pebble, and that's anywhere within 10-foot vicinity of the tree. In fact, she was about 4 foot from the base of the tree in the middle of the 18th fairway there, and it was a great line. And I don't know if you picked up on this, but she's, the camera kind of, the commentators had the presence of mind to stop talking, and the boom mic was probably turned up to 12. I'd suggest to pick this up, but the conversation with the caddy, she said something to the effect of, as the old saying goes, shy kids don't get the sweets. So we need to go for it here.
Yeah.
And I just thought that was brilliant. Like obviously you've got probably not a great deal of pressure. You're 3 strokes off the lead, but there'd be a temptation maybe for some people to say, well, anything can happen for Corpuz in the next 6 or 7 holes. Maybe I just bunt it out and save myself a par here. But no, she said stuff it and she pulled the fairway wood, and it was a pretty good shot, to be fair. She ends up in the bunker to the left of the green on 18 there. But it was just a great moment. I think really encapsulates not only her round today, but the manner in which she generally plays her golf.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I think there's no doubt that she's certainly been around for long enough on the tour that she's well known, but she's got a big future ahead of her, does Charlie Hull. There's no doubt she's going to continue to win. She's going to continue to compete. And I think she's great for the game in terms of what she brings personality wise. She dishes up those quotes, and she dishes up a bit of personality, which is what we love. So big fan of what she brings to the game.
I don't know about what you think about this, but I was kind of thinking about it this afternoon, and I thought it was timely that she, and I'm running with this analogy. I'm kind of building the plane as we fly it, Drew, so bear with me here. But I thought it was timely that she played the way she did this morning, because she's obviously British. She reminds me a bit, and only because the Ashes are in front of my face at the moment, but reminds me a bit of Harry Brook, who ended up having quite the innings last night. And when I was convinced he wouldn't get past single figures based on his previous form in this series, and he had quite innings, but just a 100% momentum player and confidence player. Like Charlie Howell had a great start to her round today, and it was like the snowball rolling down the hill. And I think that, to the manner in which I draw the analogy, that's the way Brooke bats. It's unapologetic. This is my style, and I don't necessarily adapt to suit the moment or the platform or the stage. This is how I play, and it will work some of the time and it won't work others. But that's kind of Hull on the 18th. It's like, I'm not going to compromise my style just because the moment might ask me to do so. Bugger it. I'm going to shoot for the stars. So she's incredibly entertaining to watch play golf. There's nothing vanilla ice cream about Charlie Hull. She brings a bit of jazz. So it's good to see. I know you'll probably want to go to Nasa Hatsuoka because I'm looking at the leaderboard here. I'm seeing a lot of rounds in the 60s today from people in the top 10, and she stands out as a player who was there certainly well within contention. Probably, to be fair, given the players around her after 54 holes, the player that you expected to emerge victorious. And she goes out and has a 76 on Sunday.
Yeah, well, 54-hole leader, and that third round was exceptional. As I said, I caught a lot of that broadcast, and just the way that she plots her way around the golf course is exceptional. It's very, very, very impressive to go bogey free in the third round of a major when the conditions were starting to whip around a little bit. The wind was certainly wreaking havoc with a few players, and then it just truly a wheels falling off / vomiting all over yourself situation, as we say, to with the tournament on the line at the turn, go 4 over through a 6-hole stretch and end up shooting 4 over on the back 9 and ultimately throwing the tournament away to finish T4. I think is obviously pretty disappointing. 33 putts today, and that's the story of it, because the rest of the numbers were actually pretty good. So pretty disappointing from Nasa Hatsuoka. A good fight back, at times to just maybe stop some of the bleeding after the first bogey. She managed to make a par and then get a birdie on the board, but just couldn't stop the downhill slide at the come holes 12 through 17 today.
The only other name I probably want to pick out of the top 10 before we have a look at the Australians, who are neatly grouped together, at least 3 of them, which makes our life easy in a moment. But just want to pluck out Rose Zhang there at T9. 2 players at T9, 1 over. Obviously, she's 10 strokes back, so not overly relevant as it relates to the tournament and winning. But just pointing out that she's had 3 starts as a professional. 2 of them have been majors, and she's won a tournament and had 2 top 10s to begin her career. So all of the hype around Rose Zhang coming out of college, a little of which we touched on just a few weeks ago upon her turning professional, I think is warranted based on what we've seen early doors. And that's a stock that will only continue to rise, and one worth keeping an eye on if you're a fan of the game, because she hits a beautiful ball. It's a pleasure to watch.
She does, and as you mentioned before, almost a bit of a home game, only an hour and a half down the road from Stanford, where she obviously
course record.
Holds
the course record with a 63.
So an hour and a half down the road from Stanford, the Cardinal there, where she was, will go down as one of the great Stanford athletes, particularly Stanford golfers, but we'll go down as one of the great Stanford athletes. They're the Cardinal. The Aussies, Marshy, Hannah Green, and Grace Kim and Minjee Lee, all T13, which is convenient for us.
Certainly so. So I look at this and I'll probably go the inverse, because Minjee enters the tournament as the defending champion.
Yeah.
And look, she's relatively consistent, par 1 over par on the first couple of days, which I think, from memory, particularly the 1 over after 36 holes, certainly had her inside the top 10 going into the weekend. And she finished with an eagle, I believe, on 17 or 18 on that second round. So she went into the weekend with a bit of momentum and just never really got firing. Even round 72 on Saturday, and then she's 3 over 75 today. So that's it's tough for Minjee. I mean, I think we kind of said similar her performance out of the back of the PGA 2 weeks ago as well, that she put herself thereabouts and kind of fell out the back door. So it's a victim of her own incredibly high standards, but I'm sure she'll be disappointed not to have given it a more solid shake in her title defence.
Yeah, well, T13, and this is where leaderboards can be a little deceiving. T13, nearly a top 10 finish at a major, but 13 shots off lead, right? So a long way back, unfortunately, for Minjee Lee. And there was a flutter there, I thought, for a minute, but not to be for Minjee, and she'll be very, very disappointed with the way that she played and defended her title more importantly. But how do you assess Hannah Green and Grace Kim? Because I almost feel like these are two quite similar ones in a way.
Look, similar, I sense in probably a bit of the inconsistency. Like I'm looking at Hannah Green's 4 rounds here, 4 over, 1 under, 4 over, 3 under.
Yeah.
That's weird, to be honest. And I look at it a bit differently. Like I look at Grace here. She's 2 over, 4 over, 1 under, 1 under. So she's finished, more consistently, particularly moving day, her 3rd round, and she's relatively young in her major career. Don't say it to be critical of Hannah. I just kind of look at that and think it's a missed opportunity again. 71-69 rounds 2 and 4 has her right in the mix. To have, 8 over through the other 36 holes, it's just not going to get the job done. And I know, like we spoke about, the conditions were certainly difficult. Look at that 76 on the 3rd round. It's probably reflective of what she was presented with from a conditions perspective. But yeah, similar in score. Maybe I view them through a different prism, virtually solely based on, their relative careers to date and what I expect from them. I don't know how you view that.
Yeah, I think I'm viewing it probably. I see both of them as decent results because Hannah's form hasn't been great. The last 3 tournaments cut T50, T68. So I probably view it as a little bit more of a, probably a little bit more positively maybe. But just the 3rd round was only 2 over on the 12th hole of the 3rd round, and then fell to 7 over by the end of the round. Bogey, bogey, birdie, bogey, bogey, double on 18 to finish, and then fought back really well today. But weirdly, I was just looking at scorecards here from the US Women's Open and the Women's PGA Championship. So her scorecard from this event: +4, -1, +4, -3. From the Women's PGA, +4 even, +4 even. So 1st and 3rd rounds,
Jesus.
not going particularly well for Hannah. And if you extrapolate that one event further, that 3rd round was 2 over again. So in her last 3 3rd rounds, if anyone's following me here, she's 10 over par, which is rough. And in her last 3 first rounds, she's 7 over. So yeah, it's tough at the minute. So that's why I kind of view where she finished as maybe a little bit more of a success. And look, Grace Kim, as you said, very early in her career, she's going to be a superstar who will continue to bob up at these tournaments. Putted really well today, 26 putts. The middle couple of rounds weren't her best, as I think were probably reflected in her scorecard with a 76 on the 2nd round. KM.
Yeah, look, I think it's obviously we know that Hannah's been in a bit of a rut. I don't think that's a secret. I don't know. It's hard, I think, when it's very clear what you're capable of. And I cannot imagine how excruciatingly frustrating it must be to be Hannah Green, standing over the ball, knowing what you're capable of.
Yeah.
And when we all just want her to be playing the best golf because that's what we find entertaining and that's what we get in and behind. But yeah, it's frustrating to watch her play the way she does at times. Look, I think we're getting closer, certainly. And we're probably being awfully harsh. T13 in a major is certainly by no stretch of the imagination something to be sneezed at. I just think it's very similar with Minjee Lee. It's just what we expect. It's the high standards that we have for those 2 players in particular from the women's side of the game in Australia that we want to see them, top 5 as opposed to top 15.
Yes. Who else you got? Anyone else?
Well, I just want to skip down. So T33, both Gabby Ruffles and Lydia Ko. Obviously Lydia Ko's a Kiwi, but we like talking about Lydia because she's a fantastic member of the women's game and similar to Russell Crowe, she's Australia adjacent. So we'll talk about Lydia there. Probably won't be one of the most surprising results, to be honest, given what we have seen from her in the last 18 months to finish T33 and a mile off, to be honest. She's 8 over. But Gabby Ruffles, save for the bookends. She's opened with a 78 and closed with a 77. She looked really good through rounds 2 and 3. But, what is she there? She's 11 over through the other rounds, the other 2 rounds. So that's tough for Gabby in T33. And then just the other Aussies who were in the field. So worth mentioning those. You've got Maddie Tolchard. So Madison Hinson Tolchard, the amateur. She missed the cut. And then it's just popped out at me before as I was scrolling down. Janice Wong.
Yes, I was going to call it out.
Playing under the Malaysian flag for this tournament. She's obviously a very impressive amateur that plays out of Melbourne, down there at the Sandbelt. She also missed the cut. She was +9 through her first 2 rounds, as I said, representing Malaysia for the purposes of this tournament as well. So that's probably it, Druids. Jin Young Ko missing the cut is interesting.
Yeah, there are a couple of big names to miss the cut. Jin Young Ko was one, Anna Nordquist, Danielle Kang, Megan Kang, Ataya
Titikul,
Dagstrom, Janice Wong, as you mentioned, over at Pepperdine University on the Californian coast as well. So she's going well. Jennifer Cupshow missed the cut. Lexi Thompson. I mean, there were some big names. The one I do just want to call out, and I don't know the actual story behind this, but if you scroll to the very, very bottom of the list, there's a name that I'm probably going to butcher here. Vongta Vilap from Thailand.
Natakrita Vongta Vilap. Yeah.
Vongta Vilap.
Yeah.
DQ'd 5 holes in because her caddy whipped out a rangefinder and got DQ'd. So I just wanted to call that out. I mean, we shouldn't make fun, but that is quite humorous to me. So anyway, that's the line under the US Women's Open for me.
Yeah. Just 2 brief things from me as it relates to the US Open. Bit of a trend emerging. So did see this stat today. I suppose you call it the last 3 years because there are, 5 majors for women. So the better part of the last 3 years. I think it's just under 50%. So 6 of the last 13 major champions on the women's side have been first-time winners, period. Not first-time major winners. Literally the first time they've won on the LPGA Tour has doubled as, that major victory. So there's a little bit of a trend emerging there in the sense of the women's game. And I think it's probably not a secret. Like, it's something we've been incredibly aware of, but it is literally wide open. Like, this is not, Wyndham Clark, if I draw the example, was a surprise winner, I would suggest, but he had won previously and he'd been trending.
Yeah.
Right. He'd been trending up in the right direction in the kind of particularly 8 to 10 weeks leading into his victory at LACC. The women's game truly, like, away with a life-changing victory. It's quite remarkable, really, when you look at it.
Yeah. Oh, totally. I think there's, and it's so exciting. It's so exciting, I think, just broadly that there are so many chances coming into tournaments, and there are players bobbing up and winning big tournaments that we haven't heard of, with all due respect, and that's great because we learn about new players and hopefully they're there for a long time. So exciting time in terms of the women's game, as we've continually bang on about on this show.
And then the only other thing I want to mention is kind of future focus. So I mentioned the fact that we're well overdue that the women's majors goes to courses like Pebble Beach. So just taking a look at the rota for upcoming US Women's Opens. Next year, we go to Lancaster, 2025, Erin Hills, 2026, Riviera, 2027, Inverness, 2028, Oakmont, 2029, Pinehurst, Interlaken, Oakland Hills, LA Country Club, Marion's in there, Pebbles back there in 2035. Like, there's some serious courses coming up for the US Women's Open in the next decade, as they well deserve. So just thought it's worth calling that out, that if you enjoyed as you should have. I'd struggle to see how you didn't enjoy watching that golf this weekend. There's plenty more of it to come.
Yeah, it's sick. They've some great courses on there. I saw LACC's on there at some point, like in the mid
2032
Yeah,
it is.
no, I'm not looking forward to that one. I don't think. I'm not sure. I'm not certain on that one. Not certain on that one.
We'll get it pre-Olympics. It might be a little forward forecast to who's in form. Who knows what golf in the Olympics looks like by 2032. I think it's slated for Royal Queensland here for, and whether it's teams, whether it's what it currently is, who knows? But yeah, could be a little forecast there. LACC, the Women's US Open, ahead of the Olympic and Paralympic Games in Brisbane. Drudes, let's go to London, another Olympic city. One of the Great Olympics 2012. London this week hosted the LIV Golf London event at the Centurion Club, where Cameron Smith returned to the winner's circle for the first time since he won the Australian PGA last November, Drew. So Smithy wins the individual event by one stroke, thank Christ, over Pat Reed, courtesy of an 8-under in the first round. Diminishing returns there from there forward, 4 under, 3 under in the third round, but he gets the job done by one at 15 under, tie for second, Patrick Reed and Mark Leishman. So a good weekend for Ripper GC, although they fell one stroke short of the team victory. I think that was actually courtesy of a Cam Smith bogey on the 54th hole. Can't say the 72nd hole, on the 54th hole. So to his enduring credit, as he often does, literally he said, he hasn't won in the better part of a year, and the first thing he said was, I got mixed emotions because it would have been great to get over the line in the team event. So good to see him back, Drudes, in the type of form we want to see 2 weeks out from him defending his title, of course, the reigning Open champion.
Well, that's it. I think, it's the form guide now for Cam moving into defending his title, as you said, starting to trend upwards, which is really nice. And even for someone like Mark Leishman, who we've said for many years is probably best suited to winning an Open championship if he was going to win a major. Of course, he got close back in, I think it was 2015, I think we said. But yeah, that's great to see two Aussies on the podium there, really just sandwiching old Patrick Reed in the middle, the thorn between two roses, to inverse the saying that goes. Interesting, I guess, this week, a real talking point that came out of LIV Golf was the Brooks Koepka and Matt Wolff piece as well. I don't know, I'm sure you would have seen this, but basically Brooks called Matt Wolff a waste of talent, essentially, and he was on his team, and
that he'd given up on him, I think, were the words
used.
And
Matt Wolff kind of bit back today that I saw and said, that it was really disappointing to have his leader speak like that. So, yeah, I must admit, I didn't really love the comments from Brooks. Of course, that's been quite well documented that Matt Wolff has struggled with some mental health issues. So I hope that that's not a swipe at any of that sort of stuff. But it was just another talking point to come out of the world of LIV Golf this week, Marshy.
I'll go a little harder and say I thought it was incredibly disappointing, and to be honest, pretty fucking average. Every time I want to believe that he isn't exactly who I think he is, he goes and does something that only reinforces what I think of him. Phenomenally talented golfer, the best major player of the last 15 years, undoubtedly, but just a shit bloke, honestly. Like, I think for the reasons you said, like Matt Wolff's challenges with mental health have been incredibly well documented in the past year in particular, probably in the couple of months leading into his decision to leave the PGA Tour and go and play with LIV. And then I think it's probably been reflected in his results that he's not playing with a level of confidence in himself, not only as a player, maybe as a person. And that's the nature of mental health. I think it's impossible to separate, irrespective of whether, and the optimist in me would absolutely like to think it wasn't directed at that. It's impossible to separate when you know full well what he's working through. And I thought it was almost inexcusable in the context of how overt Brooks was in the Full Swing documentary to talk through how much he was struggling. And then to get up at the Masters, where he played incredibly well, and then followed up at the PGA, where he ultimately won the tournament. Like he kept talking about, I've been in a bad place. Like none of you know how bad it's been. I've had to work my way back. Like he's been there.
Yeah.
And he doesn't have the presence of mind.
Yeah.
To not throw the guy a bone. Like he doesn't have to comment about it publicly. He literally doesn't have to address the question.
Well, there's tactful ways of saying it, right? Like you know, Matt's been really disappointing. We know that he's obviously disappointed in the way that he's playing. Like you don't have to say that he's a waste of talent.
Yeah, I thought it was
pretty rough.
I thought it was shit house, to be honest. And I know people come from the hills and talk about my anti-Liv bias, my anti-Brooks bias. It's got nothing to do with that. It's like just there's being a good human and not. And he more than once has proven that he's not great. So
agree.
Yeah, I thought it was shit. Do want to say though, it's good to see. I mean, great to see Leash as well. Like that's as good as we've seen Leash play in a long time. You know, and I think that bodes well. We love Cam and we love Leash at Open Championships. We've said that for probably the last 4 years, to be honest. Just the way that both of their games shape for links golf. And I think that, you know, we kind of said similar. Cam had a good finish leading into the PGA Championship this year. It's good to see. Like I want him to be competitive. That's all ultimately in his title defense. I really want to see him go there and be competitive. But it's always hard to get a gauge. But you know, because obviously he hasn't necessarily been eligible for any of them. But I don't necessarily think Taylor Gooch would have turned up at majors and played the lights out, despite winning 3 tournaments this year on LIV Golf. So I'm always a little hesitant to invest too much in those results. But never begrudge Smithy for picking up a $4 million paycheck and playing himself into confidence and into form a fortnight out from heading to Liverpool. Yeah. So it's good to see.
Fingers crossed for Leash.
Probably given we were in London, just a good quick jump over to mainland Europe for a quick review of the DP World Tour event. This is a great event, Drew. It's the Maiden Himalayan event. Rasmus Højgaard completes a fairy tale week to be a winner in his home country. So the Dane gets the job done. But as I said, just a ripping tournament. We've got great atmosphere. We've got players walking through a beer tent to get to one of the tees. It's golf, I think, imagined for a modern audience. Not every stop works like that on the European Tour, and shit, you know, you don't get that in parts of Kenya that we get to. It's different. It's a menu that serves all the European Tour, but I think one event like that a year is excellent, and obviously a fairy tale finish for Rasmus Højgaard to get the job done at home, as I said.
Yeah, 2 really good weeks on the DP World Tour coming up, Marshy. This event, and then we go to the Scottish Open this week at North Berwick as well. So that's going to be fantastic. Obviously, that's co-sanctioned with the PGA Tour as well. But yeah, for Rasmus Højgaard to get it done in the home country at a very, very cool event with 2 just exceptional rounds over the weekend, 65-64. Yeah, just impressive golf and a very good field as well assembled, heading into what is, I guess, a competitive time of European golf now that we've got, as I mentioned, Scottish Open and the Irish Opens around the corner, and of course the Open Championship and the Ryder Cup is also. So it's all happening in European golf, and Rasmus Højgaard continues to put his best foot forward, particularly with the Ryder Cup around the corner. So just exciting. Always good to see a hometown hero win as well, which is great.
One name that pops out to me here in the top 5 is Robert McIntyre. We haven't seen a great deal from Big Shot Bob. of late.
Yeah.
He's been in pretty poor form, to the extent at which he's certainly no guarantee. In fact, he's probably on the outer of the Ryder Cup team, which had been remarkable to think 12 months ago. He's had a T4 finish here at 11 under, so 2 strokes back. His only round over par was, in fact, the final round, one over par 71. But that bodes well for him rounding into his National Open. As you say, the Scottish Open coming up this week at North Berwick. And he's as good a player on links as anyone else is, Robert McIntyre. So it'd be interesting to see how he kind of jettisons this form into heading home. Obviously carries the weight of expectation going to play in his home National Open, but then more so into the Open Championship as well. So good to see him back in form. And then obviously Mika, want to call out Mika, had a 62 in the third round, and almost aced as well this weekend. So big fella can get on a heater. Can really Jesse Mendoza. Can Mika? And that's great to see. I know he's got an exciting couple of weeks coming up. Hopefully we'll get a chance to speak to him ahead of the Open Championship in a fortnight's time, but he is playing good golf at the right time in the context of what he's got on the calendar coming up, Druids.
Yes, totally agree. He's playing very nicely, and leading into the Open Championship, I think that's really his grand final at the minute. He's all roads lead to Royal Liverpool there for Mika, which is going to be just an incredible experience first and foremost, but B, hopefully puts his best foot forward and gets to the weekend and can play 4 rounds at a major championship will be massive. Other Aussies in the field, Marshy, I think it was Scrivener all the way down the bottom.
And Blake Windred, both of whom missed the cut. I will just mention, I saw on Instagram earlier today, Blake Windred posted a message. Yes. He's coming home for a few weeks. I don't want to oversimplify the message, so I'd urge people to go and read it. He essentially put his hand up and said he's obviously not been playing the way that he wants to, and there's probably been some challenges that he's been dealing, both with his game and off the course as well. So kind of heading home for a period of time to probably reset. And we wish him all the well in that process. Obviously being a guest on this podcast, he's a terrific young fella and a great golfer, and we wish him well because we want to see him back to his best. So that will be an explanation for why you may not see. Obviously we're used to seeing Blake's name on DP World Tour cards, so that won't be the case for the next few weeks. He comes home for a break, and we wish him all the very best and hope to see him back where we know he belongs, in the months to come. I do just want to mention, as you say, this will be the next fortnight. So co-sanctioned PGA Tour DP World Tour event at North Berwick, the Scottish Open will be a shit hot field. I want to plain speak that, because people should not miss the opportunity, particularly with no Ashes cricket this weekend. We've got a week off before we head to Old Trafford for the 4th test. So with no Ashes cricket and the rounds playing, particularly on your side of the country, a decidedly friendly time of the evening, tune in. North Berwick's an excellent course. It'll be one of the strongest fields of the year as people get over to the UK to prepare themselves from a links golf perspective. I'm very, very excited about the Scottish Open this weekend.
Yeah, no, it will be great. And a great course to boot as well, which was, if you've not seen North Berwick before, you'll thoroughly enjoy it.
Briefly, Drew, Sepp Straka, a winner, TPC Deer Run, the John Deere Classic. One of my favourite tournaments of the year, purely from a branding perspective. Not many major sponsors of events on the PGA Tour do it as well as John Deere in terms of getting all the kit and the hardware down onto the course, and even down to little details like the little tractors, the tee box markers, and John Deere do a great job. Obviously, no free ads, so I'm not sure what they could do for us, but we're open to the conversation. Your backyard probably do maybe a little ride on or something.
That would be great.
Say no to that.
Of course, I'd take it. Whatever you've got.
Exactly right. Sepp Straka, though, a 2-stroke winner, courtesy of 9 under in the 4th round. And the reason I call that out, I don't know if you saw this. I won't lie, it was pretty low on my priority list, the John Deere Classic this weekend. as it relates to all the other golf that was going on. So I probably wasn't pegging Sepp Straka's round. This is not his first win. He's a multiple winner on the PGA Tour. But I didn't have my eyes on him in particular because I didn't have my eyes on much of this tournament. So how's this? He was T133 after round 1, T29 after round 2, T14 after round 3, and wins the tournament today.
It's a hell of a run.
Yeah, I'm not going to go out and say it's as good as we've ever seen because I've no idea, but I do know that it's impressive, incredibly impressive to see him jump. So, yes, that's Sepp Straka. In terms of the Aussies, Drews in the field, Aaron Badley, the best of them. He finished in a tie for 31. Jeff Ogilvy had a run around, which is good to see. Jeffrey still getting around, T42. Harrison Endicott and his maiden season on the PGA Tour was an outright 66th. And then just looking through the
Greg Chalmers, I think, was in the field.
And Cameron Percy as well. Both missed the cut for the weekend. So that's the Aussies on the PGA Tour. That pretty much does us, Drew. There's a bit of news floating around. Since we last spoke, Jay Monahan has confirmed that he'll be returning to the role of PGA Tour Commissioner. So that's good news. He's obviously overcome the health challenges that forced him to take some time away from the game. So I believe he resumes a week from today. So the Monday of major week. So the Monday of British Open week, he resumes the role. Not that I want to be cynical or suggest otherwise, but it does seem interesting that he resumes next Monday when I do believe the US Senate investigation hearings are this week. So that's timing. And just on that front, obviously, got my medical certificate, Senator. Just on that front, news overnight our time, Randall Stevenson, who was a member of the PGA Tour Policy Board, has officially tendered his resignation, citing his conscious opposition to the deal with the Public Investment Fund of Saudi Arabia. I think, again, I'm paraphrasing the resignation letter that I saw extracts of today, but said in light of the findings, specifically into the investigation of Jamal Khashoggi's death.
There you go.
Of course, the Washington Post journalist who was, as we now know, assassinated by his own government. He specifically cited that and said, I have conscious objections to doing a deal with Saudi Arabia. People will say it's not material because he was, I believe, a non-voting member of that board, and certainly not, like a Jimmy Dunn, in terms of influential in terms of the deal that brought them to the table. But I still think like it's a member of the policy board who's resigned on conscious grounds. So there's so much to come in that space. And as we've said from the outset, like a lot will become more apparent, I think, through the Senate hearings, albeit not a lot of people are fronting. As I said, Jay's not fronting. Yasir Al-Ramayan's also not fronting from the PIF, but Jimmy Dunn, I believe, is. So it'd be fascinating to hear the ins and outs of kind of the lead up to the deal being done and what it looks like moving forward. But yeah, so much water to go under the bridge, Drews, because if this doesn't, for whatever reason, pass muster from an antitrust perspective and get signed off by the US government, it could seriously be the Wild West out there. So
who knows?
We will not pass more comment on it, I don't think, until such time as there's clarity. But yeah, it's a watch this space, certainly, because there's lots to play out.
There is. The only other one for me, if you didn't listen to the State of Origin episode, please go back and listen to it. There was a fair bit of discussion on social media. If you'd like to see Marshy defend why he didn't pick Greg Norman in his State of Origin team for Queensland, you can go back and listen to it. And that's all the teaser that I'm going to give you. You can go back and listen to it. It's been very well supported thus far. But if you didn't get a chance to listen to it, essentially, we picked a 4-ball from each state, dead, alive, current, former, players, male, female, whatever it was, you could pick.
Sometimes you didn't even have to be born in the state. Sometimes you
didn't even have to be born in the country, Marshy, to be selected. In the case of Marshy picking Peter Senior. So go back and have a listen. It was a great episode, a lot of fun to record. But yeah, that'll do me for this week, KM.
And as always, I'll just say we appreciate the feedback and the engagement at 19th Tee podcast. Good, bad, or indifferent. We always love your comments. And I've had a few, well, I suppose good or bad, depending on how you view it, but I've had a few this week of people somewhat critical of my selections. Plenty to come down the pipeline. Drew's, you had a great chat with the one and only Ron Chopper, which I'm very much looking forward to hearing, not least of which the section of that part where he dissects your swing.
Yes.
So that'll be good. It'll be great to have Ron Chopper on. And we're going to try something different. Not entirely certain when this will come out, but literally by virtue of the fun that we had in researching for our teams for the State of Origin, we've decided to give something new a try. It's going to be Who Am I? So it'll be a short episode. If successful, we'll keep them as standalone kind of, 10 to 15 minute episodes. And one of us each week will bring Who Am I to the other person. Yes. And it'll be on that other person to try and nominate or guess said golfer.
And we'll look
I think it'll be a bit of fun.
Fools. We will look like fools, no doubt.
I think it'll be fun. So I've taken the first one. You're guessing is essentially the crux of that. So that'll be coming sometime soon. Keep an ear out for that. Pleasure as always, Drew. So thank you for your company, and look forward to being back in your ears soon.